Hey, what's up you guys? It's Jason, your local e-bike mechanic over at FLX. Today we're going to give you one of the best Babymaker updates to date. This is going to be the updated battery and controller removal video. In case you guys need to swap out a battery, we're going to show you how it looks from the production bike standpoint. So it should look a lot like what you have and what you'll be doing. Just to go over it real quick, you may end up needing a pair of snips for any zip ties that get in your way. And then the other tools you're going to need for the job, you're going to need a 2.5 millimeter hex key and a 5 millimeter hex key. Let's go ahead and get started. The first step is going to be simply use the 2.5 millimeter hex key to remove the bolts that are going to remove the front faceplate. The controller is going to be in the top tube of the bike. The battery is going to be in the down tube of the bike. So we're going to go ahead and just remove these screws. Make sure you keep these screws in a safe place so that you don't lose them. They're small and they can easily be misplaced. So go ahead and put those in a place where you know you're not going to kick them or lose them. All right, once you have the screws out, it's a little easier to get the faceplate off just by kind of putting your fingers behind there and just pulling it off. You're gonna have a rubber gasket that comes off. That helps for water ingress. And then the plate itself, again, put those in a place where they're not gonna get kicked or scratched or lost. Now we're gonna be able to remove the stem from the steer tube, pulling the forks away, pulling the bars out of the way, and then we're gonna have easy access, again, to the controller in the top and the battery in the down tube. You'll need a 5 millimeter for your stem cap, and then for your stem bolts, you'll also need a 5 millimeter. So go ahead and just remove that, putting the parts in a place where you won't lose them. And the bars are gonna hang kind of out of the way via the hydro brake lines. No big deal there. You don't need to fully remove the stem bolts as these are just need to be loosened so that the handlebar can come away from the fork. So go ahead and remove that. Take that out of the way. Take your spacer off. Take your cone off. And then very importantly, make sure you don't lose the little silver ring adapter. That way everything goes back together nice and solid and you don't have any extra shakes or wobbles. Put those out of the way so that you don't lose them. At this point, with the handlebars in my hand, I'm just going to remove the fork tube. There we go. So we'll just go ahead and hold these out of the way. And right inside of there, you start to see your electronics. In the top up here, you're going to have some wiring coming out of the controller. Your controller, or ESC, is the brain of the bike. That basically controls the battery's power in and then spreads it out to all the places that need it. And then down into the down tube, you're gonna see 2 red straps, and these are gonna be the straps that are gonna allow you to kind of pull the battery out. You might have a couple of wires in your way to get to those straps, but they are just down in there. So just be patient, work slowly, don't tug hard on anything, and once you grab those red straps, you'll be able to start pulling everything up towards you and out. You're also going to need to slowly and lightly pull on the controller wiring, moving that forward as you pull the battery out. So both of them are going to come forward together. Once you have good access and you can remove the wiring that connects the battery to the controller, you'll simply disconnect the battery first, and correspondent, you'll disconnect any wiring that may still be connected to the controller, and then via any wires going to other things like your throttle or your pedal assist sensor. Cool. So at this point, I'm basically just going to be taking the battery connection first, slightly pulling that forward towards me. Once I get this big black connector, I can just disconnect those. Now my battery is no longer connected to the controller. I shouldn't have any worries of anything sparking or shorting out. So I'm going to kind of pull that wire out of my way so that I don't have to deal with it. The next set of wires you're going to see are going to be the controller attachments. You just want to pull those lightly forward. Once you have access to each wire, you're just going to disconnect each one. These 3 colored wires that you just disconnected right here, blue, green, and yellow. As you disconnect this first set right here, the blue, yellow, and green wires, as well as the little black connector that has some similar colored wires, plus a black and a red wire, as well as a white, you're basically disconnecting your phase and hall sensor wires. These are the wires that connect directly to the motor, so you can kind of pull these out of the way. This side of the wiring will actually be connected to the controller itself, as well as this end of the black plastic piece and the battery connection. You're going to have 2 more wires connected to your controller that you'll want to disconnect. The first one, let's go ahead and get some more of that controller out of here. The first one is going to be a triangular plug, and it's going to be yellow colored. This one connects directly to the pedal sensor, directly to the controller, so that's your pedal sensor. And then the final wire that you're going to find in there is going to be a green colored connector, and that one is going to be the direct connection from your display to your controller. And there we go. So we got that disconnected green color. Once you've disconnected all of the wiring between the bike's wires and the controller's wires, you can actually now remove completely the controller from the bike. This is the brain of the bike. This is basically where everything plugs in, and we've identified what each of these connections are. If you need to swap out a controller, or we have sent you a replacement controller, at this point you'll just go ahead and do the reverse order that we did to get this out. You simply slide it back in, keeping the wiring out about halfway so that you can make your connections, and then you'll go ahead and just push this back into the top tube. You'll want to push that back as far as it can possibly go, not tugging too much on the wires while you're doing it. If it is a little bit difficult to get it in there, just grab the wiring on the side where it goes into the side of the bike, and you'll kind of have to fidget with it a little bit, but you will find the right space for the controller to slip back, and then you'll find that it just cruises right back as far as it can based on the length of the wiring. So you'll be able to swap that out very simply. The other thing that I wanted to show you guys was how to take the battery out of here. So now that you have all of your wiring, anything that can get out of your way, you'll want to simply just pull out of your way. So we'll get these guys, the motor wires can come out of the way and kind of come down through the bottom. Again, not tugging too much on these wires. You don't want to pull any of the connectors off of there. If you do happen to start this job and pull a connector off of the wires, simply stop right there and you can contact us. We will be able to help you out and get the connectors that you would need to reinstall or get you a new wire. Just let us know. Now that we're at the point though that we can remove the battery, we'll start in here, and the red straps that I had originally mentioned are right here. These you can give a good hard pull on if need be. You won't pull these off of the battery, as this wraps all the way around the bottom of the battery, so it gives you something good to hold on to. You are going to find that before you can fully pull the battery out, the last connector you're going to need to disconnect is going to be this guy, and this is the charge port on the outside of the bike where it connects to the battery. So you're just simply going to remove the connector, and there's your charge port. Here's the end of the charge port that connects to the battery, and now your battery is free and clear and can easily be pulled right up and out of here. Just go ahead and get the battery wire out of our way. Be careful, it's okay if your bearing on the headset pops out. That's no big deal, you can simply reinsert that in a minute. So we'll just go ahead and put that right back on there, and it just presses right in, pops right in. Now the red straps, we're going to basically make sure that our wires, that was the wire I needed. We're going to make sure that our wires are free and clear. Nothing is impeding the battery from running right up and out of here. If you find anything is in your way, just simply grab it and push it until you have free access to the red straps. Give it a good yank, and as you pull it out, you're going to see there's a hard plate on top. This is where the screws that you took out of the bottle cage mount that hold this plate and hold the battery solid down. So you're just going to continue tugging on the red straps, pulling with a little bit of force. Once you can get a good hand on the battery, you'll pull it out. There's your battery, indicating that this side must be up. So when you reinstall this battery, you're keeping the plastic piece on the top, at the top position, and you're going to slide it in, making sure not to push on any wires as you're pushing it in. You're going to have to kind of go slow, finagle it left, right, up, and down until it finds the sweet spot, and then it should slide nice into the down tube where you'll see that it sits just perfectly right inside of there. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to help as soon as we can. Often enough, it's something simple that's keeping it from sliding in, like a wire in the battery may just be getting hung up. Have patience, work slowly, work cautiously, and you should be able to get the job done without a problem. As always, let us know if you have any issues at all. All right, guys, so we're going to show you the reinstallation of the same components that we just took out. So the battery is going to go back in first. You're basically just following the reverse order of the way that everything came out. So the last thing that we pulled out was the battery. The first thing we're going to put back in is going to be the new battery replacement. Again, make sure that nothing is impeding the battery from going in. It is going to take a little bit of work to get it down and in there, but once it gets in, you'll find that it easily slides in there. So just be careful that none of your wiring is in the way. You're going to start in with this side up at the top position, as we mentioned before. Creating a little bit of space for me, just pushing a wire out of the way. I'm going to start inserting the battery. I notice that it starts to get hung up a little bit, so you'll notice my hand down here trying to manipulate the wiring kind of to the left or the right side, and you notice the battery slips right in, nice and easy. It finds that sweet spot. And then you can kind of push it down, and once it's in there, you can let it go. Just make sure that you have access to plug your charge port back into the charge port, and your main battery will plug back into the controller. I like to, just as a tip, I always like to plug my battery in very last so that I know that all my connections are made. Final connection to make is the battery to the controller, and then everything should work just as it was intended to. So we're going to go ahead and make the connection here just so that it's easy. We're going to make the connection with the charge port. That's the smaller one. Just got to grab the end of the charge port here, and it's very easy to line up. You'll notice that there's two arrows on either side of the connector. You simply just match the arrows, arrow to arrow, and you'll be able to just make that connection nice and easy. Sometimes it's nice and easy. There we go. So our charge port is now connected. Now we can kind of let the battery run in just a little farther down the tube. Tuck in your straps because you won't need to move those again. And we're going to keep this wire exposed so that we can plug that in as the final plug-in. At this point too, we're going to remove any wiring that will get in the way of the top tube because we're simply going to be reinserting now the controller. So we have a new controller here we're going to be putting in. You're simply, before you make any connections, you want to install this so that it's pretty good in there, but you want to make sure that you have access to the connectors so that you can plug everything in, and then once we have connections all made, we'll seat the controller all the way back as far as it can go. So the first step is going to be getting it in there. You'll find that, again, it has a little bit of a sweet spot to it. Once you find that sweet spot, it should slide in nice and easy there. So there we go. We got it to go in nice and easy. Leaving the connections coming out of the front here so that I can make all my connections. Once my connections have been made, everything goes back together, the forks go back in, your silver adapter ring goes on, your cone goes on, your spacer, your handlebars, and then you're ready just to tighten everything up. So let's go ahead and put these connections together for you here real quick. You're basically going to first take the display, that's the green 5-pin. It's triangular, and you're going to find the green 5-pin. It's also triangular, can only connect to the one spot. So make a good connection so that you don't see any more green. It's nice, solid, and pushed together. There's also arrows on either side of these connectors to indicate where you're supposed to plug it in, but it's very simple. You shouldn't be able to get that wrong. The next one that we're going to connect is going to be our pedal sensor. That's the yellow 3-pin connector. So we're just pushing it back so it comes through the front. And we're going to go ahead and make that 3-pin connection there. Again, match up the arrows if it's easier. Otherwise, it can only go in one way. So now we have our display and our pedal sensor connected to the controller. The only other connections that we're going to have to make will be those phase wires, the hall sensor, and the battery connection, the battery being last. So we're going to go ahead and create some space for us to gather those motor wires. Alrighty. These wires basically go color to color. So your yellow goes to yellow, blue goes to blue, green goes to green. And very importantly, when you plug the hall sensor in, there's a little tab right here, and there's a little alligator clip, if you will, that's gonna catch that tab. So you can't plug this one in wrong. And if you wonder how it's supposed to plug in, again, you'll have your blue to blue, green to green, yellow to yellow, black, white, and red. And those will correspondingly match the same colors on the other side. Hall sensor is plugged in. Next thing is going to be your phase wires. So we're gonna plug the yellow to the yellow. Make sure that these seat solid and have a little click when they actually connect solidly. You're gonna go yellow to yellow, then blue to blue. You hear the pop, and then you're gonna do your final connection here for the green to green. Our phase wires are now connected properly, and then the final connection that we have to make here is going to be our battery connection. Everything else is ready to go. If you need a little length on that, you can pull up on it. It should give you a little bit of a pull when the battery kind of pulls up. And with this guy, you have a notch in the top. Make sure that you plug it in properly. Again, an arrow on either side of this will indicate what direction these plug in. So you go ahead and push that in nice and firm, making sure that it's all the way in. And basically at this point, everything is absolutely connected. So now we're just gonna do a little bit what I like to call wire management. We're gonna push the controller back in here as far as it'll go. We're gonna tuck the wires in neatly. It's important to understand that the wires need to sit behind the steer tube here. As your forks are gonna come up, you don't want the forks catching any of the wiring and pulling on anything. And you basically want your wires as far back so that as you steer and the tube moves, it doesn't rub on any of the wiring, causing wear on the wires. So we're just gonna do a little bit of wire management, pushing this back together. Once everything is nice and seated and it's out of the way, you'll go ahead and simply put the fork back in, put the ring back on, the cone, put the spacer back on, handlebars, tighten everything down so that it's nice and tight and you're ready to roll again with a battery replacement. As always, if you guys run into any questions or have any issues, don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you need anything else or any advice, reach out to us. I'm always happy to help. I'm your local FLX e-bike guru. I know these systems like the back of my hand, so please feel free to reach out and ask any questions you guys might have. As always, it's been great explaining to you the production Babymaker update, and I'm always happy to keep you guys ripping. Keep shredding.